Rise up!
This is the Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. I'm your host, Jess Root from CardsWire.com, the USA Today NFL Wire site, covering the Arizona Cardinals, of course, episode 609 of the show, the first of two preview shows that we'll have this week in Week 9, as the Cardinals are at home for the next 2 weeks. This week, Week 9, at home against the Chicago Bears. The Bears are 4-3, the Cardinals 4-4, and in first place in the NFC West. Surprise, surprise. And the Bears are 4-3 and nowhere near first place in the NFC North, which is a wildly good division this year. Joining me to preview this game is Alyssa Barbieri, friend of the show. It's not the first time she's even been on the show this year, as we talked before this season when our opponent preview season, but now it is the game preview. Alyssa, thank you for coming on again. Welcome back. It's very, very early for me. It's a little after 5 a.m. for me, but I'm used to being up this time of day. Normally just not like ready to go. I'm not presentable normally at 5 in the morning. How's it going for you?
I'm doing a little better here on the East Coast. It's about 8 a.m. But yeah, no, you seem more put together than me.
Well, your Bears this year, would you say that they are about what you expected them to be? Or is it, I think, is it more of a tale of two seasons? Because they started out offensively really bad and seem to have come around. But if you're looking here midpoint of the season, is this roughly what you thought this Bears team would be?
Roughly, I would say, there's been a few wins left on the table. At this point, I had them kind of going through game by game, 5-2, beating the Colts. Like I expected to lose, like I predicted to, like the Texans and of course the Commanders, but not in that fashion. This is about what I expect, because when you look at their schedule, obviously the front half is a lot more favorable than the back half, where they have those 6 division games. And you mentioned this division and how they have 4 wins and they're just not even close to first place. And it just speaks to just how talented this division is. So yeah, up front, I think more favorable slate. Now this is when, the difficult part of their schedule, especially after the next 2 games, when division play begins. So I think this is about where I expected them to be, give or take the offensive performance in the first 3 games and in this last game against Washington.
And like it has been a fairly light schedule relatively. Obviously, the losses they have to Houston and Washington, on like surface level, looking at those 2 losses, like, oh, those are 2 playoff teams. Those are 2 teams that are on track for the playoffs. The Colts, which aren't a bad team, they're also not a good team. They're a weird team this year. And the wins are against teams like Titans, Jaguars, Panthers. Those 3 teams are relatively bleh. And the Rams win was against a Rams team that was terrible at the time. So with that, what do you know about the Bears so far this year then? What can you say about how good they are not from what you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at those 3 losses, they're all by 1 score. They've been in all of these games. They have not gotten blown out. It's just about finishing, and the offense has to carry its weight, because this is a really good Bears defense that just held the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL to 12 points before that last second Hail Mary. So I just think, this is a team where it's going to go as far as its defense is, unfortunately, right now. I mean, I see the offense making strides. Caleb Williams is doing the best that he can with, an offensive line that just is it's struggling before now. There are injuries, just littered with injuries. Don't even know who's going to be starting at left tackle this week. We'll have to see how the week shakes out. But yeah, I mean, looking at this team, it's hard to know because, I mean, they've been really good at home. They're undefeated at home. They have really looks like a 9-game win streak at home dating back to last season. And they're 0-3 on the road. This is a team that will go as far as Matt Eberflus takes them, and there's been a lot of discussion and controversy surrounding him and his play, his play in like the loss and his future. But I think at this point right now, the offense, there are a lot of question marks. But with the defense, I think, they're one of the better units in the NFL that have been without, and they've been without two of their starting defensive backs. So, I mean, at this point, I think we can say that this is a really good defense, especially now that they got to play a top offense in Washington. But outside of that, it's kind of hard to know exactly what this team is until they go and they beat a good team.
Let's start with Caleb Williams then. How has Caleb Williams looked overall? Obviously, the beginning of this season was a struggle. That shouldn't be necessarily a surprise for anyone to know about rookie quarterbacks. But how would you say he's done so far this year? He's got 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He's averaging 6.5 yards per attempt, which is fine. He's got a very, very reasonably all right passer rate, 85.6. What can you say about his play specifically since the start of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I thought this would be a more favorable situation for him coming into the season with obviously you finally go out and you add some weapons. You add Odunze and Keenan Allen to the mix. You already have DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. And then you added DeAndre Swift as well, who's been huge for this offense in the last several weeks. But the offensive line that is a huge problem. And so is the offensive coordinator and Shane Waldron first year in Chicago. And considering some factors around him and how it's not exactly perfect and how he, in some games, is under constant duress, which it felt again with this Washington game and going back to those first 3 weeks of the season where he, had his share of struggles. Up until last week against Washington, he was making weekly progress where he just seemed to get better. His passer rating was going up. He just was looking more comfortable. At times he looked like a seasoned veteran out there and how he was going out there and, going through his progressions, and his pocket presence was something, especially even behind this offensive line, that was really impressive as well. So, I mean, for a rookie who has now played in 7 games, I think that, he's looked really good. At times, and I mean, he's looked really bad, but I think that game against Washington was his worst game so far. Something just looked off. Maybe it was him coming home, the jitters. I know he said he doesn't get nervous, but come on, we all get nervous. So, I mean, this last game, I'm excited to see how he bounces back this week against Arizona because, it looked like his game in college when he played Notre Dame. So, and after that game, he really bounced back. So we'll see how he does. But I think for a rookie who's played 7 games, I've been impressed with how quickly he's made improvements, especially as, he's looked like a veteran at times. And with the situation around him and things not always going right. So I definitely feel like, and it's hard to make a statement like this, but something just looks different between different with Caleb Williams and when you're going back and looking at Justin Fields, or obviously Mitchell Trubisky before him. I feel like if you get an offensive line in front of this kid and a play caller who knows what to do with him, that I think that he could be really good down the line.
Offensively, they are 27th in yards, 16th in points, right in the middle of the road. What has been going on offensively outside of Caleb Williams this year?
Well, getting DeAndre Swift going has been huge for this offense. I think that's a big reason why they were able to really get into their groove against the Rams is when it started, essentially. Because Swift, big free agent signing, and they added him because obviously, I mean, he's a solid runner, but also what he can bring, in the passing game. And we've seen that, what he's able to do, and just, I mean, even in the run game is, that 56-yard touchdown against Washington, just he's a playmaker in every sense, and getting him involved in establishing the run has been huge for Caleb Williams and him getting comfortable. You have a solid run game. It's going to take pressure off of your rookie quarterback. So, I mean, DeAndre Swift has been really good. I mean, they have a whole cast of weapons, and, during that 3-game winning streak where the offense was really hitting its stride, there was a new player that was shining. It was DJ Moore having a breakout game one day, one game, Rome Odunze the next, Cole Kmet and Keenan Allen the next, so Having those weapons in place has been really big too for Caleb. But again, it all comes back to the offensive line, where they have not been at their best. And it's disappointing for a general manager who is a former offensive lineman, because you should know that's the most important thing that you need to shore up, especially for your rookie quarterback.
DeAndre Swift's been good. Outside of that, did just Khalil Herbert and Roschon Johnson see their role just dramatically reduce this year?
Yes, actually, Khalil Herbert was a healthy scratch last week against Washington, which I think might indicate he might be on the trade block. We'll see at the deadline coming up here. But Roschon has really stepped into that short yardage back, especially on the goal line when they bring Doug Kramer in. He's not supposed to be getting the handoff. He's supposed to be blocking. And when they do, Roschon's gotten
Shout out to that call against Washington.
I'm still not over that, so I'm just going to take a little digs here and there. I don't understand that play call, especially because Roschon, I just said, is every time he's gotten the ball on those 1 yard, to go, he's gotten it every time. He's gotten into the end zone. So why are you not doing that? Yeah. But no, Roschon his play has also, last year he didn't really have as much of an impact. It was Khalil Herbert getting those carries. But yeah, just DeAndre Swift has gotten a bulk of it, especially now that he has really found his groove and he's someone that really needs those carries. He needs to get in a groove. But yeah, Khalil Herbert, I feel like, he's in last year of his contract. He was just a healthy scratch. I feel like his time might be coming to an end here, because I don't envision them re-signing him anyways at the end of this season, but we'll see. But it's been all DeAndre Swift with a little sprinkling of Roschon Johnson.
In terms of, since both our teams have rookie receivers, Marvin Harrison Jr. has had some big games, has had some also some growing pains. What has been the story of Rome Odunze so far this year, who's got 20 catches for 287 yards? I granted, this is a different scenario because it's an offense that does have DJ Moore, that does have Keenan Allen, that does have Cole Kmet. What has been the story about Rome Odunze this season so far?
Yeah, I think that he's just in a situation where there are so many weapons that he hasn't been as involved as he should be. And I think even looking at this Washington game and what he was able to do, it's we need more Rome involved on offense. When he did have a breakout game against the Colts, when he had over 100 yards and had a touchdown. Granted, Caleb Williams did have to throw the ball 50 times in that game, which I don't know as an offense coordinator why you're doing that. But, his connection with Caleb has been one of the better ones, I think. So, getting him more involved, I think, is going to be important. I would love to see him more involved Sunday against the Cardinals, because it does seem like I mentioned before, because they have so many weapons and so many, players that can really go out there and be playmakers and have that big game. It seems like every new game there's someone different that's really stepping up. Keenan Allen and Cole Kmet were the last ones to really have that big game against Jacksonville. So, perhaps it's, maybe it'll be DJ Moore this week. Hopefully Rome Odunze, we don't know. But he hasn't had the kind of production that I would have expected, even with this loaded supporting cast. I would like to see him involved more before I could really make a true assessment in just 7 games in.
Defensively, number 11 in yards, total defense, number 4 in points allowed. They are 11th against the pass, 14th against the run. Although one of the things I like to look at in terms of the rush defense, a bit below average in yards allowed per carry at 4.7. What are the strengths of this defense? Who are the standouts this year?
Yeah, the strength is definitely that secondary. They have with Jalen Johnson and Tyreek Stevenson, Kyler Gordon, who's banged up right now, Jaquan Brisker, who's banged up, and Kevin Byard. Just what they've been able to do. Just they're really good, solid unit. And, despite, they're about middle of the pack when it comes to sacks, but this defensive front is definitely improved from last season, having Montez Sweat there off the edge, and they've been rotating some guys Opposite him, Jervon Dexter, second-year defensive tackle, has been a real standout for them. He leads the team in sacks. Up until last week, it felt like a sack in almost every game. Just his ability as an interior pass rusher has been huge for this team. The linebackers always standouts there with TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds. Just an overall really well-rounded group. But I would say that secondary especially has just been really, really impressive. So it hurts to have Brisker and Gordon, who didn't practice during their walk. They had a walkthrough on Wednesday, but they didn't practice. So it would hurt a lot, especially when you have Marvin Harrison Jr. Coming up to not have, two of your best defensive backs. But I've been really impressed with this group. I mean, there are questions about Matt Eberflus as a head coach, but what he's able to do as a defensive coordinator, I think, really speaks volumes in what he's done with this group. They have not allowed more than 21 points in 12 games dating back to last season, I think it's 13 now, which is just incredible. And they have the top red zone defense in the NFL. So they might be allowing a lot of yards or teams to move the ball on them, but they're not allowing them to get in the end zone, which I think has been huge. They are the reason why they've won several of their games this season. Just a really impressive group. Now the offense just needs to get it in order.
Coming up next on the Rise Up Series podcast, the Best Our Cardinals Talk on the Web. Let's move it into talking about this matchup. What are the keys to this game? What are some matches we're watching? It's coming up next on Rise Up Series. We're back on the Rise Up Series podcast, the Best Our Cardinals Talk on the Web, talking to Alyssa Barbieri from Bears Wire, managing editor over there, and also one of our senior NFL editors, talking about this game. What is kind of the vibe around how the Bears fans are viewing this game in particular? The Bears being 4-3, the Cardinals 4-4, coming off of 2 straight wins and 3 out of their last 4, all on last-minute field goals, sometime 2 as time expires, with the backup kicker, in fact.
So I actually think it was different from before last week and then after this game. I think when we looked at their schedule, it was like, okay, this is a favorable next 2 games with the Cardinals and the Patriots after that. And it's like, that's a winnable game, which I still think it is a winnable game. I think for either side, it's definitely a winnable game. But I think especially coming off that really brutal loss against Washington, where there have been some players, calling out coaches or, criticizing some things. And, their effort being called into question during practice by, a leader like Cole Kmet speaking up about they need to respect the game more. I think that with everything happening coming out of that game, I view this as like a must win almost for them, just in terms of, so you don't let things kind of get too out of hand. But I think that, maybe before last week, there were some Bears fans that are like, oh yeah, we got this. But, the Cardinals are no slouch. I mean, it doesn't matter how you win. It's that you're pulling out those wins. And the Bears have proven, you were talking about how the Cardinals are, one off those last second field goals. The Bears have lost all 3 of their games by 1 score. And that's something where you have to close out games. And I'm also really looking to see if they can get off to a fast start, because they have just been abysmal in the first quarter this season, even on defense, that when they've allowed like a rare touchdown or some points, it's normally in the first quarter there and getting off to a fast start. So they really need to come out of the game quick, come out of the gate fast here to get going. But I think that with everything happening, it does feel like a must win, but it is a winnable game. But the Cardinals aren't a slouch like some might have thought before.
Right. And, interestingly enough, is that the Chicago offense looks vastly different in terms of production on the road versus at home. And is that a fluky stat right now, or is it the fact that the offense does struggle more on the road, maybe because of the rookies they have in the lineup, Caleb Odunze? What is it that's because they haven't scored more than 16 points in their road games, and they haven't scored fewer than 24 points at home?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just look at the teams that they've played on the road with the Texans and the Colts and Washington, and they all really approach the offense in a similar way, where you're just going to blitz and overwhelm Caleb Williams, and that's been key right there. And I think the Cardinals would do well. I mean, I obviously don't want to see it, but I think the Cardinals are probably looking at, what those defenses were able to do right to really rattle him. Because if you let Caleb Williams get into a comfortable rhythm right there, he's just gonna that's when he starts having his really good games. So I don't know necessarily that it's a road thing, more that it is a defensive approach and how they're approaching really getting after him. And I think that I'm surprised we didn't see a lot more of that. But again, against, a Rams team that was nursing injuries, or, the Panthers or the Jaguars were just really bad teams and bad defenses, that they were able to get away with that. I think that if the Cardinals really bring the pressure on Caleb Williams and they get after him quickly and rattle him early, I mean, unfortunately, it could probably be another ugly start.
Well, funny story. The Cardinals aren't good at bringing pressure.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Well, they have what I think 15 sacks this year. 5 of them came against the Rams, and that was with a third string left tackle. Their leading sacker, Dennis Gardeck, his 3 sacks lead the team. He had them all against the Rams, and now he's on IR. So,
well, funny you mentioned that left tackle, because we don't know who the Bears left tackle is going to be heading Sunday. Braxton Jones has a knee injury. He's out a week or two. Their rookie, Karana Magaji, who got in there for him, has a calf injury. He's probably not going to play. So it might be Larry Borum, who's on IR right now, but he's designated to return. Yeah. So, I mean, an offensive line that's already giving up, is already just not a good unit, is going to be at a bigger disadvantage. So Shane Waldron's going to need to do something for Caleb, because unless he's going to get killed back there, hey, you might get another 5-sack game. I mean, I hope not, but no, this offensive line.
Looking at the rushing totals, now the Cardinals got their passing game going finally. They had their first 300-yard passing game under Jonathan Gannon and Drew Petzing's leadership in a year and a half, and it was Kyler Murray's first 300-yard passing game since 2022. That said, the Cardinals' greatest strength has been in the run, but the 4 of the past 5 games for the Bears, they've given up 119 or more. 168 last week, 120 to the Panthers, 119 to the Rams, and 150 to the Colts. Looking at that matchup against James Conner, how do you think that defense will look this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I think that he might be able to get yardage, and it kind of goes back to what I mentioned before, but at times the Bears defense is giving up those yards, but it's going to be hard to get in the end zone on them. So I could foresee him having a big game. There have been several games this year where a lead back has had, either 100 or close to 100 on them. There's times when they've shut them down. So, I mean, James Conner, really talented running back. So I'm excited to see that matchup, but I think that this Arizona offense might be able to move the ball on them, but they are going to have a hard time getting in the end zone there. So I don't know. We might be seeing a field goal game from both sides here.
Woohoo! Woohoo!
Down to the last second field goal, Jess. You're excited for that.
Yeah, it'll be excited to watch. And how will you believe? How do you believe will the Bears will attack the Cardinals defense? Will it be more of the rushing attack? The run game has been much bigger in the last 4 games: 131, 128, 152, 202. And the passing production. Now I know part of the passing production is limited because of the number of sacks that Caleb has, he's been sacked. What is it? 22 times this year. He's been sacked 22 times this year. Losing 157. So he's getting sacked about 3 times a game. Will the run game or the pass game be more of the focus against Arizona's defense?
Yeah, I know you got to start with the run game, and when you look at the success that they had in those 3 during that 3-game winning streak, that's what they've done. They've really established that ground game, utilize play action, get Caleb into a comfortable rhythm, some easy throws. Also, utilizing Caleb in the run game, which is something that we really didn't see until that Jacksonville game, where he's someone who doesn't like to run. He said that. But again, there are some design to quarterback runs, or when you see, just lots of green grass in front of you, just go. Because he's someone that he likes to stay back there in the pocket and go through his progressions and let a play develop. And, unfortunately, he doesn't always have that time with this offensive line. So he's learned now, just take off, you have all that green grass and go. But he's really come into it. He's not going to be like a Justin Fields where he's just like flat out like running, and you're going to see a lot of design quarterback runs. But yeah, I think that it starts up front, or starts on the ground with DeAndre Swift, who has just been really, really impressive over the last 4 games. And maybe we'll see a little bit of Caleb as well. But I think that the ground game, getting that established, will be the focus and should be the focus for Shane Waldron this week.
What are the matchups you're most looking forward to? Kind of what are the matchups that you're paying most attention to this weekend?
Yeah, the one I really want to see, and I'm curious to see it because, I mean, it's probably going to be Jalen Johnson against Marvin Harrison Jr., or it might be Tyreek Stevenson against Marvin Harrison Jr. is more what I'm thinking.
Tyreek Stevenson, everyone's faverite player this week.
Yeah, this is again. That's where there's been so much discussion about, oh, should it be disciplinary action for him? And I mean, Eberflus is very vague about that, but I don't think you punish the team and like suspend him a game because he's your second best cornerback and you're going to need him when you got Marv out there. So I could see the Cardinals moving him around.
Here's the thing with that. That was just bad defense overall because they had no body on Noah Brown. That was just bad defense. Now did Eberflus say, was Stevenson supposed to stay back with him? Was that his job?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, he's supposed to box him out. Yeah, funny
go.
how that works. And then he's the one that tipped it right to him. I feel like he might not start this week, Stevenson. Like that might be the the biggest punishment you'll see because again, don't punish the entire team.
The first quarter suspension type thing that they see in college.
Which I mean, you suck in the first quarter anyway, so there you go. I mean, I guess it works out. But they do have Terrell Smith, who's solid. But I mean, Tyreek is definitely their second best cornerback, and you're going to need him. So, I mean, I'm excited to see because they'll move him around, I'm sure. But Jalen Johnson talked about wanting to like be allowed to, battle number 1 receivers all game and to follow them. But that's not his decision, he said. So we'll see. I'd like to see whoever is guarding Marv. I'm excited to see that matchup for sure.
How do they match up against tight ends? Is that more Edmonds, Edwards? Do they use their safeties against the tight ends, or how does that go?
Yeah, no, it's at the linebackers, and that was an issue last week with Zach Ertz. He really, gave them a problem.
Hey, and guess what? You know who's better than Zach Ertz? Trey McBride.
Oh, so that could be that's a matchup to watch as well too, because again, like the blueprint is there. And again, they might give up yards, but it's also we'll see when it gets to the red zone.
Montez Sweat, where does he line up? Does he line up more against left tackles or right tackles?
Right tackles.
So that's one to watch because if he lined up against Paris Johnson, feel pretty good. Johnson's been fantastic this year. Kelvin Beachum, who's been surprisingly effective. The Cardinals haven't given up a sack in the last 3 weeks, and Kyler's only been hit 1 time in each of the last 3 games. Now, that is not 100. That's about 70% offensive line play, and then about 30% Kyler's awareness and his movement skills. But this has been the best stretch in Kyler's career of avoiding sacks and hits. He's only been hit 3 times in the last 3 games, no sacks. And so, it'll be
green right there.
Yeah. So that's going to be fun to watch because, obviously, unless Jonah Williams was designated to return this week, I'd be surprised if he's activated. But Montez Sweat against Kelvin Beachum is going to be one to watch. Dexter, what part of the offensive line does he typically see, or he moved on either side of the interior?
Yeah, he's the 3 tech in this defense. So he's sometimes you get him lining up next to Sweat, which has been really big for them and collapsing that side.
And that is the side with our backups because
so
Jonah Williams is out, and then Will Hernandez is out, and at right guard the Cardinals use kind of a rotation of Tristan Colon and rookie Isaiah Adams. So that'll be okay. That's I
will say about Sweat though, he was listed. He has a shin injury, and the thing with him this season, he doesn't have. You would love for his sacks to be higher. Again, his impact on this defense is just impressive, but he's been dealing with injuries all season, and the latest is the shin injury. Matt Eberflus said he does expect him to play, though, so that's good because I really want to see that matchup. I think that'll be good, but He's the driving force behind this defense. So that would be a huge loss if he wasn't playing. But right now they sound optimistic that he will.
Any other individual matchups that you're excited to see? Obviously I'm their receiving room against the Cardinals cornerbacks is going to be key. The Cardinals did a pretty good job against Miami's receivers last week, and they didn't have their veteran Sean Murphy Bunting. It was the Cardinals cornerbacks outside of Murphy Bunting are second-year undrafted guy Star Thomas, second-year Garrett Williams, who's having a fantastic year, by the way, rookie Max Melton, and yeah, so that's been those three plus Sean Murphy Bunting, who's at best an okay cornerback.
Yeah, no, I definitely am excited to see if they can really get the passing game going. What these Bears receivers can do, because again, it's like pick your poison between the three of with Moore, Odunze, and Allen. So they've all three had a really good game this season. So I think if you were talking about with the inexperience there in the secondary, I think that's an opportunity for them. So that's definitely another matchup I'm excited to see. And Cole Kmet, if they just remember to get him involved in offense, which has also been when they really started finding success, because he was targeted once against Washington. And, Kmet's been huge in the passing game and as a blocker, just a really good, underrated tight end. So I'm curious to see that matchup if they end up, getting him involved in the passing game. Wake up, Shane Waldron. Let's go.
Well, and the Cardinals against the Chargers gave up a ton of yards to tight ends, but that was also because the Chargers had squish for receivers in that game pretty much. So yeah, coming up next on the Rise of Seaward podcast, Mr. Cardinals Talk. Let's talk about predictions and picks. We'll see what Alyssa thinks about how this game's going to go. That's coming up next on Rise of Seaward. We're back on the Rise of Seaward podcast, Mr. Cardinals Talk on the web, talking to Alyssa Barbieri, previewing this game with the Arizona Cardinals and Chicago Bears at State Farm Stadium, 2:05 p.m. Arizona time, as everyone else will move their clocks back an hour, except for us here in Arizona, because we don't believe in that nonsense. We get enough sunshine. We don't need to save it. We don't need to save it during different parts of the year. But Alyssa, how do you think this game's going to go? The Cardinals are favored by 1 at home, 1-point favorites. Who do you think actually has the edge? This gut feeling, who wins this game?
Gut feeling. It's going to be another ugly one where I'm envisioning a lot of field goals. I'm envisioning perhaps a last-second field goal. I'm just my gut's telling me the Bears, but I don't trust it because they are still winless on the road, and they have some issues. But this is their defense, when they really needed them and really needed wins, have really stepped up for them. And I think that the offense doesn't have to do a whole lot when you have this defense who is not allowing more than 21 points. So, and again, I haven't had time to think about this, so I'm just, but yeah, no, we were talking about the field goals, and I'm picking, score probably a 23-20, or maybe even closer to a 19-18. I feel like it's gonna be some weird game. That's the vibe I'm getting off of this. It's not gonna be we're gonna have a shootout here. I feel like this is gonna be an ugly game where we're gonna have a lot of field goals, and whoever has the ball last is gonna be lucky enough to win.
Yeah, I get that vibe too, and kind of my feeling was, I know you said that the Bears hadn't allowed more than 21 points, so I'm like,
you might not need that.
But I'm I think the Cardinals can do this. I think they kind of turned a corner, but I'm they haven't won 3 straight games since the first half of the 2021 season. I'm can I really predict them to win a 3rd straight game when they hadn't won consecutive games in 3 years? I don't know. But, the way I feel about this Cardinals offense is that the struggles they have had have mostly been self-inflicted as opposed to other teams' defense inflicted. And I believe they'll be able to run the ball against the Bears. And Cardinals defense, this is a defense that is under talented in my opinion overall, and so they're a team that kind of has to survive. They have to survive defensively and hope for just one or two, third down stops late in the game, and that's kind of what happened against Miami. I think 23-20 Cardinals with another field goal in the last couple of minutes. Kyler's got 3 game-winning drives this season and 5 in the 16 games that he's played since coming back from his ACL. So if there's one thing that Kyler's been since coming back is clutch, and they had to even against the Bills in week 1 when they lost by 6, they had the ball late in the game with a chance to do it. And if there had been some reasonable officiating at the end of that game, the Bills clearly interfered with Greg Dortch on a couple of plays down the field. It should have been 1st and goal inside the 5. And that would have been, had they won that game, that would have put a different vibe on this season completely. I think it's going to be, I want to say the Cardinals win 23-20, but I wouldn't be surprised either way. The Cardinals do tend to do letdowns. And if I'm looking at the big picture of this season, they've got this game, they've got the Jets next week. If they only won one of those 2 games, I think it's more likely that they beat the Jets than the Bears, especially with that. But I'm gonna stick with that. I'm gonna stick with 23-20 Cardinals, but I could see it. I don't feel passionate about
you have them being the first team to score more than 21 points on them when they just shut down a Washington team scoring 31 a game.
I know.
A bold statement right there. But I will say too, you're talking about Kyler being clutch. The one thing about Caleb Williams, he shows up there in the 4th quarter, which is something that the Bears haven't really had at quarterback. Is he delivers he delivered 2 game-winning drives essentially for them. The one before when they handed it off to Doug Kramer, which was just stupid, and then again to take the lead with 17 seconds left. So I really do think that this game will come down to who has the ball last, and
maybe it'll be a 19-17 win. Okay.
There, okay. You can go 2017,
that way I don't cross the 21-yard threshold, 21-point threshold. But no, honestly, I think that the Cardinals found their passing game last week, and it's going to come down to in the passing game. So I think they'll be able to run the ball. Can they get the ball to Harrison and to McBride? And if they can do that to both of them, if you get production from Connor, McBride, and Harrison, I don't think there's many teams that can beat the Cardinals if offensively they do that. And that's kind of the way the team is built. Offensively, they were supposed to carry this team, and they just hadn't. But Harrison's been inconsistent, and McBride was kind of low, but it wasn't his fault. It was just the play calling. They've been really, really, really stubborn about running the ball, but I think that might be a good plan this week. So, yeah, 19-17, 23-20. I just think it's going to come down to the last 2 minutes. Whoever has the ball, and I mean, I feel like if Chicago has the ball late, that they'll probably, if they have the ball last, they'll probably win. And I feel pretty damn good about Cardinals if Kyler's got the ball as well, and a little bit of time. How do you think? Let me. We got some props. 65.5 is the rushing total for DeAndre Swift. Would you go over or under that?
I think I'm gonna take the over. He's eclipsed that over, I believe, in the last 4 games. He's had over 100 scrimmage yards too, but yeah, definitely on the ground. I think you're going to see a more dedicated rushing focus this week from Shane Waldron, and hopefully, opening things up for Caleb Williams. But yeah, DeAndre Swift has been really good. He has been the beating heart of that offense so far, and just the reason that they were able to kind of get going during that 3-game win streak. So I think I foresee him having another solid day for them.
Looks interesting totals here. 57.5 receiving yards for DJ Moore. That seems really low.
Yeah, it depends too, because with the pass, I mean, last week Caleb threw 24 passes, and DJ was only targeted 5 times. It was surprising. So there's a lot of receivers and only one ball to go around, but I do think that DJ is his favorite. He's someone who does come up clutch for him and Cole Kmet. So 57. I think I think we're going to see them be able to move the ball a little bit. So I don't know. Depends. I'm like, is this his game? I'm going to lean under right now, just gut feeling, because Caleb does spread the ball around a lot, and you'll have a lot of guys who have like 50, 40 yards, 30 yards, depending on
your receiver trio. The line for DJ is 57.5, for Keenan Allen 45.5, and for Rome 34.5.
I'm like, maybe the over if they get the passing game going too. Like if you get him in a rhythm, I could really see them start to attack downfield. I'm like, my gut's telling me under, and maybe just under, like 55. So I'm gonna lean under there. That's a gut feeling.
Do you think either quarterback throws 2 touchdown passes?
Well, would I have my final score being? Like, either quarterback there. I feel like I'm saying no. I feel like this can be an ugly game. I feel like they might each have one. It's hard to score touchdowns on the Bears defense. The Bears offense makes it hard on themselves to score touchdowns sometimes. So I'm gonna say no to that.
All right.
Or Kyler might have a rushing touchdown.
Yeah, that's very possible. Kyler's done that a few times against the Bears. But yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and wrap this up then. Alyssa, really big thanks to you. You can find her content on the Bears Wire. Lots of it. She has lots of content over there. And you can find it's just Alyssa Barbieri on Twitter, isn't it?
Yep, short and sweet. Well, not short and sweet because simple. It's my name.
But nothing tricky. There's nothing else
to it. Still Barbie, like the doll and an R at the end. There you go.
All right, Alyssa, thank you so much. That'll wrap up this edition of the Rise Up Here podcast, Mr. Cardinals Talk on the Web. That takes care of our first of 2 preview shows. Seth and I will either, I'm not sure if we're going to wrap that up and record today, have that drop on Friday, or if we will wait till Saturday to record and drop that Saturday afternoon. But we have one more show at least. Thanks for listening as always. That's Alyssa Barbieri. I'm Jess Root. We'll be back again soon.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up, See Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise up, Red Sea, be Red, See Red, and of course, Rise Up, See Red.